Hey everyone, welcome back to The Explainer. Today, we are unpacking an absolute roller coaster of a football match. We are looking back at the 2026 FIFA World Cup round of 32 clash between Brazil and Japan. Whether you watched it live and literally lost your voice screaming at the TV, or, you're just catching up on all the madness now, we're going to break down exactly how this unforgettable game unfolded, piece by piece. But before we start at the beginning, I actually want to drop you right into the absolute dying seconds of this match. Picture this, it's the 95th minute in Houston, Texas. The score is deadlocked, 1-1. A penalty shootout, or at least a grueling, leg-burning extra time, feels completely inevitable, right? The air is just thick with tension. You've got one of the greatest teams in football history on the absolute verge of a catastrophic early exit, while an underdog nation is literally seconds away from taking the game to the wire. So, how on earth do we get to this razor-thin margin? Well, to understand that, we kind of have to look at the monumental scale of this whole event. To set the stage, we had this incredibly roaring crowd of nearly 69,000, 68,777 to be exact, packed into the stadium in Houston. On one side, you have the mighty Seleção, five-time World Cup champions Brazil, carrying the massive weight of a nation demanding a sixth star. And on the other side, Samurai Blue, a Japanese side just hungry, actually, scratch that, desperate for their first ever victory in a World Cup knockout stage. The stakes truly could not have been higher, and I am pretty sure the collective heart rate in that stadium was just off the charts. Act 1, the shock. Okay, let's dive into this. Because things definitely did not go according to the Brazilian script in that first half. The massive turning point hits in the 29th minute. Japan's Kaishu Sano, who plays his club football for Mines, capitalized on a huge lapse in concentration. He intercepts this really loose, kind of sloppy pass from Brazilian defender Delino right in his own half. But Sano doesn't just lay it off. No, he takes off. He breezes right past veteran midfielder Casemiro and launches into a stunning 40-yard solo sprint, finishing the whole thing off by beating Alisson with a low, driving effort from the edge of the box. Just like that, it's 1-0 Japan. Now, for the football historians watching, this moment definitely triggered some serious déjà vu. The historical parallel here is actually pretty crazy. The only other time these two nations met in a World Cup was exactly 2 decades earlier, back in 2006 in Germany. And in that match, Japan also took a shocking early lead in the 34th minute with a goal from Keiji Tamada. Now, obviously, back in 2006, Brazil ultimately surged back with their star-studded lineup to win 4-1. But here in 2026, man, as that halftime whistle blew, a Brazilian comeback felt far, far from guaranteed. Act 2, the response. So how exactly does a legendary manager like Carlo Ancelotti handle a potential disaster in the locker room? Well, this quote right here brilliantly captures his mindset. He told the press, "At halftime, I said to the players to be patient because sooner or later we would score a goal." Talk about ice in his veins, right? He fully acknowledged that Japan was incredibly well-organized, super physical, and incredibly tight in defense. But his experienced, calm leadership was really all about keeping their shape and not compounding the problem. He just trusted the sheer talent on his roster to eventually break through. And sure enough, Ancelotti's patience paid off in the 56th minute. Casemiro, who, let's be honest, had a really rough first half, getting booked early and getting totally beaten on Sano's opening goal, finally found his redemption. Actually, just minutes after failing to convert an absolute sitter from close range, he made sure not to make the same mistake twice. He rose highest at the far post to meet this precise looping cross from Gabriel Magalhães, and he heads it home with just immense power to level the score at 1-1. You could literally feel the palpable relief echoing through the stadium from that massive Brazilian support. Act 3, last gasp magic. Let's move to and see how this builds, because 1-1 is not enough to advance, and the clock is relentlessly ticking. After a frantic final few minutes where Vinicius Jr. goes on a stunning run and actually hits the post, extra time feels totally inevitable. So looking at the match flow, we had the shock at 29 minutes, the equalizer at 56, and then we reach 90+5, deep into stoppage time. Danilo recovers the ball in transition, passes up to young Endrick, who smartly finds Bruno Guimaraes. Guimaraes then slips the ball to substitute Gabriel Martinelli, who is somehow totally unmarked in the box. Martinelli controls it, pokes it past Suzuki, who can only touch it onto the inside of the post, and it rolls in. 2-1 Brazil. Unbelievable. The sheer historic weight of this goal, it just cannot be overstated. According to Opta statistics, Martinelli's 95th minute strike is the latest winning goal ever scored in normal time of a World Cup knockout stage match since records began all the way back in 1966. It was literally a record-breaking moment of last-gasp magic to avoid what would have been a monumental upset. And the raw emotion of that moment just spilled all over the pitch after the final whistle. Listen to what Martinelli said after the match. "I don't even have words to describe the joy. The other day I hit a ball against the post, I knew I would have another opportunity." It really humanizes the immense pressure this guy felt. After a highly criticized, difficult group stage where he really struggled to be clinical, this 25-year-old forward finally found the net when absolutely everything was on the line for his country.
Part 4. By the numbers. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is
how the dramatic eye test we just talked about perfectly matches the statistical reality. Brazil absolutely dominated possession, holding the ball for a staggering 68% of the match compared to Japan's 32%. This is the perfect visual representation of the game's contrasting styles. You had Brazil applying relentless, suffocating pressure, pinging passes around the pitch, while Japan maintained a highly organized, super tight defensive shape, just waiting to strike swiftly on the counterattack, which, to their credit, they executed perfectly for that first goal.
And when we look at the attacking output, the gap is just as massive. Brazil rained down 19 total attempts on goal, with 7 of those on target. Japan, on the flip side, only managed 5 total attempts. But take a look at the fouls column. Japan committed 13 fouls compared to Brazil's 4. This really highlights the immense physical toll the match took on Japan as they basically scrambled to disrupt Brazil's rhythm and defend their penalty area for nearly 100 minutes of exhausting football. Part 5. What lies ahead?
So what does this 2-1 result mean for the future? For Brazil, surviving a scare isn't the same as thriving, right? They have some critical issues to fix before their quarterfinal clash on July 5th against either Norway or Ivory Coast. First off, their midfield was heavily exposed. Lucas Paqueta really struggled and had to be subbed off at halftime. Plus, there are now injury concerns over Casemiro, who came off late in the game. Second, they have an ongoing glaring lack of a true number 9. Matheus Cunha started but had a really quiet display, which prompted Ancelotti to use a mix of Endrick and Martinelli to kind of fill the void. Bottom line, Carlo Ancelotti still seems to be searching for his absolute best starting 11. For Japan, though, the narrative is much, much more heartbreaking. They played what Carlo Ancelotti himself called a complete game, yet they go home empty-handed again. It's just a truly devastating reality. Japan has now taken the lead in each of their last 3 World Cup knockout games. And tragically, they have lost all 3 of them. It is a really bitter pill to swallow for such a talented squad that, once again, proved they have what it takes to go toe-to-toe with the titans of world football. Which leaves us with this final provocative thought. Brazil undoubtedly has the aura, the history, and a bench deep enough to flip any game on its head in the dying seconds. But as we clearly saw today, they are very prone to slow starts and midfield vulnerabilities. Against Japan, a 95th minute miracle saved them from disaster. But as they advance deeper into the tournament against true top-tier sides, will this current form really be enough to secure that elusive 6th star? Honestly, it's the question every single football fan will be asking next week. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and keep your eyes on the pitch.